All right, now on to muscle and nervous tissues. Well, muscle and nervous tissue, we're not going to talk a lot about them here because we have whole chapters devoted to them, okay? We talked more about epithelial and connective tissues because, we find them everywhere, but these are whole organ systems themselves. And actually, we find that epithelial tissue, though it looks like we have a lot of it, it covers all of our skin, right? It lines every opening. By weight, it doesn't provide a lot of our body weight. Nervous tissue, not a lot of body weight either. Connective tissue, sure, think about your bones, right? They're pretty heavy. And then muscles contribute a lot, the most, towards your body weight. Okay? And of course, if you're a big old burly, bodybuilder, so probably proportionately more. All right, muscle tissue comes in 3 flavors. We have skeletal muscle tissue, cardiac muscle tissue, and smooth muscle tissue. So skeletal muscle tissue, guess where it's found? Skeletal muscles, muscles that are attached to bones. Skeletal muscle tissue is voluntary, which means we can think about moving it and move it. We send it a command, okay, consciously. They are long cells, and they're so big that we have multiple nuclei to help maintain them. Actually, in development, they were all like separate cells that kind of merged together, and because they became so big, they kept all the individual nuclei to help manage the functions of the cell. They are very distinctive because they have striations. You can see the little stripes in there. When we get to the muscular system, we'll talk about what those stripes are for and what they do for you. Okay, so striated is a big visual for you. Multiple nuclei, another big tip for you that it's muscle tissue. And if we tell you it's voluntary, that's a big tip that it is skeletal muscle. All right, now cardiac muscle, it's also striated. So just seeing striations isn't enough, okay? But only one nucleus, okay? And instead of being long tube-like cells, these are branching cells. They branch off and they touch at least a couple other cells. You can kind of see it here in this illustration on the left, okay? They are branching out like tree trunks. And their distinctive feature is that they are sewn to one another by these protein discs called intercalated discs. These discs, like I said, they sew them together so that when your heart is contracting very forcefully, we don't tear the heart apart. Key there. And also, it has little cell junctions in between called desmosomes or connexions, and no, not desmosomes, sorry. um, Connexions that are like little portholes so ions can flow from one cell to the other. Going to be really important when we send the command to contract down to a cardiac muscle cell. So striations, okay, could be skeletal, could be cardiac. One nucleus, has to be cardiac now. Intercalated discs, these little lines across the cells, only found in cardiac muscle tissue. And cardiac muscle tissue is only found in the heart. Now, smooth muscle, it's way smaller. Okay, the cells are very tiny. They almost look like squamous epithelial cells because the nucleus is the thickest part of the cell. They're spindle shaped, we call it, because they flatten out and they get real tiny at the ends. Okay, they don't have any striations. They have one nucleus, and they're involuntary. Oh, I forgot to say that about cardiac muscle tissue. It's involuntary also, meaning that you don't have to think about it to make it contract. Thank goodness, right? What would happen when you fell asleep? Okay, so this is involuntary too. So it's not enough just to say, well, this muscle tissue is involuntary. Well, I'm going to need a little more information to decide which muscle tissue it is. If you tell me that it's not striated and it's involuntary, it must be smooth muscle tissue. We're going to find this lining like your digestive system. It's going to contract on its own in order to force fluids like through a tube, for example. All right, now nervous tissue. We're not going to get into a lot of detail here. Nervous tissue is specialized for conducting electrical impulses and transmitting information. Most of the nervous tissue is going to be found in the brain and the spinal cord, and it's predominated by two groups of cells. There's the star of the show, that is the neuron itself. It is the one that is doing the transmitting of the electrical impulse. And then we have a group of cells called neuroglia. Neuroglia, or you can call them just glial cells. Okay, they are supporting cells. Neurons are so highly specialized that a lot of the cell basic housekeeping duties are farmed out to glial cells. Neurons are huge. They're enormous cells. They have a very large cell body to them. They have a branching network to them called dendrites. Dendrites refers to the root word there. Dendron means tree. Dendrology is the study of trees, and you can see it kind of looks like a little tree sticking off of the cell body. And these are the receptive areas of the cell. These receive messages like from other neurons. And then it has a long process, only one, called an axon, and this is the transmitting portion of the cell. And then it ends with telodendria. These branch out to communicate with one or many thousands of other cells. Okay, and then neuroglia are much, much smaller. There are several different kinds, and we're not going to get into the functions of each and every one, but like I said, they're going to do some of the housekeeping. They're going to help provide neurotransmitters. They're going to clean up the garbage. They're going to help check and bring nutrients to the neurons. They're going to regulate the external environment and maintain the physical structure of nervous tissue. They provide an important barrier, for example, between the blood and the neurons so that, we can't just have like a virus easily get to those neurons. They're that important. Okay, that concludes our tour of the 4 primary tissue types.